With the Attack on Titan event going on, I keep seeing the same question come up over and over again, and that is, how do I gear heroes? So in this video, we're going to dive in and talk about how to properly gear your heroes. Let's jump into it. Welcome everybody, welcome. If you don't know me, I'm BearCozy. I strive to make not only entertaining, but also educational videos. I like to show off my progress, I like to have fun, and once in a while, we'll show off some failures as well, where I try really hard, and it doesn't pan out. So, with the Attack on Titan event going on, with the Ace/Attack on Titan collab, there have been lots of new players coming in. So if you are coming in, welcome. And I see all of your new questions. I have been getting questions on the YouTube channel as well as in the Discord. And just in general, I have been seeing the same question come up over and over again. How do I gear heroes? Bear, please make a hero gearing guide. So here we go. We're going to talk about this. We're going to make a hero gearing guide, how to gear heroes. Typically, the way that this works is it is broken down into 3 different classes primarily. It gets a little bit more in depth than that, but for the purposes of this video, for the ease of explanation, we will break this down into 3 primary classes. You have your damage dealing class, you have your tank class, and you have your healing class. There are a few others that just provide buffs or just provide shields, things like that. But for the purposes of this video, I want to keep it very simple. And then once you get the basic concept down, once you figure it out, the rest will come very, very easy. So you have different types of damage dealer. Let's take Zachary, for example. He's pretty good. He has been made in Epic not too long ago, so he wasn't elite. He is now an epic. He's pretty good. Of course, Nathalia is amazing. This is my secondary copy of Nathalia for my free-to-play friendly comps or low-spend comps. So I try to keep these. My main Nathalia is really decked out. I consider her decked out, but I don't want to make a video with my main Nathalia. So if you are just starting, let's go ahead and talk about Zachary. Now, Zachary is a damage dealer, and his damage is based on attack. Now, at first glance, what we're looking for are his stats. As you can see, his attack is A. By the way, S is the highest, A is just below that, B is below that, C, and then D. So you are looking for somebody that has a really high attack. Like if we look at, I believe Nathalia is an S tier attack, which is the highest tier. But if we look at Zachary, he's a little bit lower than her. He's an A tier, and that is the first indication of what kind of hero he is. Now, also, if we start looking at his skills, as you can see, his basic grants himself attack up. So that is indication that he is an attack-based hero. And then, of course, you can go through and look. Some of the hero skills will say damage scales with health or damage scales with attack, things like that. Or healing scales with health. We'll get there in a little bit. We also have classes where their damage scales with defense. So talking about Zachary, his damage scales with attack. So the first thing we want to do is we want to click on info at the top right after you get to your heroes. If you don't know, if you are brand new, you've never played this game, you don't know anything about anything, from your main screen, this is what mine looks like. Go to heroes. And then you should start out with Zachary, level Zachary, follow the new player tips, level Zachary, and you will have him. So once you have Zachary, the first thing we want to do is click on info, click on more. This will give you all of their stats, and this will display the overall stats with the gear and everything. These are his final stats. Now what we are primarily looking for is crit rate. 100% crit rate is going to be the very first thing we are looking at. Right? That is what we need. That is the very first thing. Now, why do we want crit rate as our primary? Crit rate increases our chance to land a critical strike. Critical strikes deal 150% of the regular damage. So if we have 100% chance to crit, that means he will do 150% of his normal damage, of his non-crit damage. The next thing we are looking at is his attack and his crit damage. So those are both relative. If one is lower, the other one will suffer. So try to get as much attack as you can. 2600 is pretty low, but he is only level 40, right? So this all works hand in hand. And of course, you want to put some speed on him. As you can see, mine is 150. I try not to drop my heroes below 130 because then they start going after the enemies, and then they take way too much unnecessary damage. So now that we know we want crit rate to 100%, how do we get it? Well, it's very simple. If we go to gear, which is right under info on the right hand side, click on gear, and you can click on manage gear. the first thing we want to do, and right now this is Zachary's build, the first thing we want to do is we want to start with rings. Now, if you don't have any rings yet, go and farm, run some dungeons, run some adventure, get yourself some basic gear so you can start getting his crit rate up a little bit, and you can start working on that, and his damage will go up just from having a higher crit rate. All right, let's go ahead and unequip all. I have this gear set saved. Let's unequip all, and we're going to go through this together. If we click on info, we click on more. Right now, he's at 15.5% crit rate, which is bad. So we're going to gear. We're going to manage gear. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the ring up top. Now, if you are brand new and you are watching this video, you want to go to main stat, crit rate. Those are all of your crit rate rings. And you want to, as you can see, I have a ton of them that are not leveled. I don't have enough resources to level everything. But the best is going to be up to 15, right? So you want to start with a crit rate, and as your gear gets better, as you start farming more and better gear and getting better substats, you can transition to a crit damage ring. But we'll get there in a little bit. So your main stat is right up here, the crit rate. That is what you're looking for. Additional stats, these are your substats right down here. And sometimes if your substats are good enough, you can get extra attack percentage, extra crit damage percentage, or whatever else is on here, speed, things like that. So what we are primarily looking for to start is a crit rate ring on the main stat. Then we want to move over to the necklace, and we're looking for an attack percentage necklace. And this is going to be for attack-based heroes only. We're looking for an attack percentage necklace, and as you can see, it is an attack percentage. I did not say flat stats, so stay away from flat stats. And here, as you can see on the substats, we have a roll on crit rate, which is really good. Resistance is okay. Health is okay as well. But if you can get a couple of rolls on crit rate, that is where you want to go. That is your go-to. So now, as you can see, just with these two pieces of gear, crit rate jumps from 15.5 to 65%. And then you can mix and match. Depending on how slow your hero is, you can go to boots. And by the way, don't worry about the sets. If you can fit him into a set, that is fantastic. If you cannot, you don't have to. You can mix and match, so you can use any necklace or any piece of gear that will give you the overall stats. Overall stats is what we are looking for. So you can actually use different pieces of gear from different sets, and you don't have to complete one set. That you'll get to later on once you start getting better gear. So now that we are at 113 speed, he is a little slow. So at this point, you can either put him in speed boots, or you can put him in a attack percentage boots. You don't really want to put him in flat stat boots at all. Everything we are doing here, we want to be in percentage. Now, these are all speed boots. And as you can see, his speed goes up to 152. And you can do that. And once you start getting some better gear, you can transition him to attack percentage, right? You can transition him to attack percentage and find something that has a couple of speed rolls to make him a little faster, to be able to get him out of speed boots. So you are going to start with a crit percentage ring and most likely speed boots, flat stat speed boots, and over time you can transition him to a crit damage ring and attack percentage boots. So this is all gradual. And then after you got the bottom three, this is where you want to start. As I've mentioned before, you want to start with your ring, move on to your necklace, and then work on boots. That is what works really, really well. Then you can mix and match, and you can find pieces of gear that have crit rate rolls and try to get him to 100% crit rate. And if you are just starting, farming Tulpa will be very, very good for you, and you can actually use the Rage set. Rage set will give you 12% additional crit rate if you have 2 or more pieces of gear. So as you can see here, just by throwing this on, I do get a Rage set bonus. It gives me an additional 12% crit rate. And now it puts us to 111% crit rate. Now, 100% is all you need. Anything over that is too much. There are a couple of exceptions, a couple of heroes that will gain a slight bonus from having overcapped crit rate. But for the purposes of this video, all you need is 100%. And then you want to focus on your attack and your crit damage. Moving over to defense-based hero. Now, you're using Hackern as an example. He is synthesizable. You can synthesize him for very, very cheap. He is a really good free-to-play option. That is how I started farming Queen of Tides with him and Santos, who is also synthesizable as well. Now, Hakrin is not a damage dealer, but he is a defense-based hero. If you look at his skills, primarily his trait, all team members gain bonus defense equal to 10% of this hero's defense. And of course, Ascended, mine is Ascended. All team members gain 20% of his hero's defense. So you want to put him in as much defense as you can, right? He is, for me, he's not doing damage for me, so I do not have 100% crit rate on mine. My focus was defense, and that is exactly what I did to allow my team to survive a lot longer in harder instances. But if your hero's damage scales off of defense, you want to make sure he has 100% crit rate and as much defense as you can, and leave the attack alone because he does not scale with attack. The only caveat being is if your hero gains from both. There are a couple of heroes that gain from bonus defense and bonus attack. So that is your defense-based hero. Same process goes when you're gearing. Same thing, start with the rings and then work on trying to get them, work on their overall stats first. And then once you hit their overall required stats that you are happy with, then you can focus on getting them into sets. And last but not least, your healing heroes. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be using Rodira. She is very, very good. She's also very easy to get. She's an elite. You can get lots of copies of her just from basic shards. And when I started playing, I used her for many months, and I used her really well in Queen of Tides 12, which is where you will want to start. That is going to be your first dungeon, and I have made lots of videos, free-to-play videos, free-to-play comps on farming Queen of Tides with very easy-to-get heroes. So, looking at Rodira, first thing first, clicking on info, looking at her skills. Her ultimate heals all team members based on the amount of this character's max health. So what does that tell us? That tells us that you want to get as much health on her as possible. Does she really need 100% crit rate? She's a healer, so she does not. So the way we gear her is we try to put her in a health percent necklace. We also try to put her in a health percent ring. And as you can see, these are not rolled up very high. And I actually have her in health percentage boots. If you notice, I've been saying percentage during this whole video. What you don't want to do is start leveling up flat health gear. That is something that you do not want to do. And if you can, over time, try to fit her into a Terra set and a Revival set, because that gives her a lot of extra survivability that she would not normally have. So since Rodira is our healer, and since she's not there to do damage, she is there to keep our team alive. And as you can see on her skills, healing scales with the character's max health, you want to put her in as much health as you can. You want to give her as much health as possible. Now mine's got 18,000, and that is because I use primarily health percentage gear on her. You can get to a lot higher, but I would not recommend anything lower than 15,000. Usually about 13.5 is the cutoff where your heroes start dying, but that depends on what dungeon you're running. And I am thinking of Queen of Tides 12, usually 13.5 to 15k HP. If you can get more, get more. So that pretty much rounds it up. I don't want to make this video too long. There are some other heroes that scale off of different things, like Jonathan is not a damage dealer. He provides lots of shields, and the shield that he provides damage scales with this hero's max health, which is really, really nice. And he also provides a really large shield with the max health as well. So you want to get as much HP as you can. Now for me right now, I have 24k. I've seen much higher, but he does not have 100% crit rate, because for me, sacrificing crit rate for more HP was worth it. So once you get to that stage, play around with your own heroes. But the main point here is build attack heroes with attack, build defense-based heroes with defense, and then build heroes with as much HP as you can. They will keep your team alive. So there it is. I hope you like this guide. To keep this video from getting too long, I will cut it here. Leave me a comment or question down below. I'll try to answer them best I can. Also, do me a huge favor, hit the like and a subscribe down below. And for more BearCozy videos, check out the top right.